that when your child has to go to the hospital, that child gets attention right away, and that they can be admitted if they need to be admitted very, very quickly, not having to wait hours and hours or even days before they get the care that they need. In Brampton, I've heard these stories for many, many years. I have seen what the people of Brampton have been having to deal with, and it has to stop. I mean, I can remember, and I'm sure all of you can as well, the stories of Jamie Lee Ball, stuck in a hospital waiting room and then a hallway with no privacy, with her private health circumstances having to be told and retold over and over again for everyone to hear while she sat in agony without the care that she needed. But Jamie Lee, sadly, wasn't the only person who experienced that in Brampton. I've heard stories from the people in these communities here in Brampton that have said that they avoid the emergency room here at Brampton Civic. Why? Not because it's a bad hospital, and not because the people on the front lines aren't doing everything they can to help people when they need emergency treatment, but because they're overwhelmed, because Brampton needs more hospitals and more emergency rooms. So people actually literally drive right by and drive for half an hour to get to the next hospital emergency ward that they can find, in hopes that they can get treatment sooner, rather than having to wait literally sometimes days here in this emergency room. And so the good news, of course, is that we can fix that. And that's what the NDP's plan is. We will make sure that we are hiring thousands and thousands of new frontline healthcare workers to provide the healthcare that people in this province deserve in hospitals and otherwise. We will make sure that Brampton has the 3 hospitals that it needs, making sure that this hospital has the resources it needs, but also that Peel Memorial is a 24/7 emergency ward hospital with acute care beds to help people get the care they need, and a 3rd hospital, as well as the cancer center that we've been talking about. You know, we can also make sure that the pressure is reduced on our emergency wards by providing the kind of home care that people need, so that they can stay home and not end up in emergency. The kind of mental health care that prevents people from having to seek mental health services at an emergency ward in a hospital. We can do all of these things together by voting NDP in this next election. We know that Liberals were the ones that brought us hallway medicine. They froze hospital budgets. They kept a cap on the increases when they did have them to 2%, even though hospital inflation is much higher than that. So they broke the hospital system, the healthcare system. They broke access to timely care in hospitals. They fired 1,600 nurses when they were in office, and they brought our hospitals into a hallway medicine crisis where hospitals like this and so many others were operating at 105% capacity, 110% capacity, 115% capacity, and sometimes more, when hospitals should be operating at about 85% capacity for optimal service. So this is the history of the Liberals. But look, Doug Ford keeps cutting, and Conservatives always cut. He started cutting the minute he was elected in 2018. And we know he is planning to cut even more in our hospitals and our healthcare system and privatize the healthcare system in this province. And nobody wants that. The vast majority of Ontarians don't want that to happen. And so the good news is we can prevent that from happening. We can stop the cuts. We can end hallway medicine. And we can make sure that people get the quality of care that they need right here in Brampton, but all across the province. And the way to do that is to vote NDP. There's about a week left, but you know, you can vote right now. Up until May 28th, the advance polls are open. And so I urge people, if you want to fix hallway medicine, if you want to bring the kind of quality of care that we need for Ontarians in our hospitals and other parts of our healthcare system, a vote for the NDP is your path to getting there. So I want to say thank you to these fantastic candidates in the Brampton area. I'm really happy to be here yet again. Want to remind people that Doug Ford's choices are going to hurt you. They already have hurt you. I will always be on your side. I will always be making the choices that work for you. thanks for your attention this morning, and I'm really happy to take any questions people have. But I do want to remind people the way to get the change you want is to make sure that you vote NDP this time. And happy to take those questions. Don't forget, advance polls are open till the 28th.
Private unions and trade unions. And it shows dozens and dozens of meetings since 2019. And obviously now they're reaping some of the rewards of that in terms of some endorsements. So I was curious, what's your strategy?
Thanks for the question, Jack. One of the things I think working people know very well is that New Democrats are always on their side. We will always fight for working people. We're excited about the opportunity not only to make sure people have great jobs with decent pay that pays the bills, but that we bring trades back to school, for example, back to elementary school, back to high school, in particularly those shop classes, making sure that young people know that they can have a great career in the trades. But look, we also know that Doug Ford has not been a friend to working people. We know that he took $6,000 out of the pockets of minimum wage workers by canceling the minimum wage increase. We know he favors an economy that's based. That's why he brought in Bill 124 and continues to underpay our healthcare workers. Low-paying economy, that low-wage economy, is now spreading into other parts of the economy because employers are taking their lead from Doug Ford, saying that it's okay to underpay people. And at a time when prices are going up, when the cost of everything is skyrocketing, at the very least, we should be paying people a wage that helps to pay the bills and gives them some security that they can keep a roof over their heads. So when it comes to working people, they know that New Democrats, that Andrea Horwath will work for them and is on their side before elections, during elections, and after elections. And I'm proud of the relationship that I have with working people from every union and from every workplace and every sector of our economy. It's working people that make our economy run. And unfortunately, it's the big fish at the top of the food chain, Doug Ford's buddies, that reap all the benefits and rewards of the economy. And that has to be addressed. We need people to be able to afford a good life here. Everyday people should be able to afford everyday life in Ontario. And that's why we're saying to working folks, to middle-class families, to middle-income families, to low-income families, we will not increase your taxes, no matter what folks accuse us of. We will not do that because we know how hard it is. But we'll also make sure that those big fish, Doug Ford's buddies, are paying their fair share. Those corporations that made windfall profits during the pandemic will have to pay a little bit more so that we can fix our hospitals, so that we can make sure people get the mental health care that they need, and that they can get the prescription drugs they need with their OHIP card. That's what working people want to see. A government that's on their side all the time and understands that they deserve to be able to make a good life in this province and not have to travel to other provinces to try to set down roots. I've got a lot more to say about that, but that wasn't exactly your question, so I'll go back to you.
Thanks. Is it enough, do you think, to just say that working people know that they have an ally on you, or do you think you need to step up maybe these one-on-one meetings in the future with these building and trades unions?
We've never stopped having those conversations, both myself and staff. In fact, I was with the Carpenters Union in Nipissing just about a week and a half ago, before I got sidelined, like so many others did, with COVID. As I said, this is definitely a relationship that we've had for many, many, many years, and we're going to continue to have that relationship. It's not going to be based on a particular election cycle, though, and it's not going to be based on building big highways to huge mansions that nobody can afford while our climate crisis continues to rage. So there's just no doubt that Mr. Ford is in it ultimately for his big developer buddies, and that's gonna cause us a great deal of pain in the future. And whether that means the paving over of farmland or wetlands or conservation areas, carving up the green belt, carving into the Holland Marsh, the 413 and the Bradford bypass are mistakes. They shouldn't be happening. The people that are happiest about that are Doug Ford's developer buddies, who are going to make a lot of money hand over fist.
Next question comes from Nushin Ziafatsi from the Canadian Press. Hi, Andrea.
Hi, Nushin.
Both the Liberal and Green platform costing documents earmark money to end for-profit long-term care, but yours doesn't. Why?
Oh, on the contrary. On the contrary, in fact, we have billions of dollars set aside for the making of long-term care and home care not-for-profit, and it's something that we've not only talked about, but we've been committed to for a very long time. Unlike the Liberals, who after 15 years didn't do it, and certainly the Conservatives, who have no plan on doing it at all, we absolutely have those funds in our financial plan, and I don't know where you're getting the information that it's not, but I can guarantee you that it is.
And the PCs say that long-term care spaces and addressing the wait lists are more important, even if it's through a combination of private and public operators. What do you make of that?
I think that what we are risking with a Ford government is more and more privatization of our healthcare system, and we have seen very, very clearly and starkly and in a horrifying way what privatization in healthcare does. Just look at what happened in long-term care. And let's not kid ourselves. Long-term care was in crisis well before the pandemic hit. It was in crisis long before Doug Ford took over the reins. The Liberals were cutting long-term care. They were squeezing long-term care. We tried to get them for many years to invest in long-term care and to really turn around the horrific circumstances that people were living in long-term care homes, particularly the ones that were operated by private companies. But long-term care really did take the brunt. The people in long-term care, the families of people in long-term care, took the brunt of COVID-19 as Doug Ford basically lied about putting an iron ring around long-term care. He did the opposite. He didn't hire the PSWs. He walked away from those people who were struggling to hold on to life in long-term care. The armed forces showed us with their report just how horrific things were. Infestations, people losing their lives, not to COVID, but to malnourishment, to dehydration. Imagine that was happening here in Ontario. So absolutely privatization, more privatization in our healthcare system is the wrong way to go. People should not be, corporations should not be, shareholders should not be reaping profits on the backs of our loved ones and people who need healthcare services. Universal public healthcare is something New Democrats have always stood for, will stand for, and will not waver on, unlike Liberals and Conservatives.
Next question comes from Hardeep Kaur from Parvasi.
Hi, Hardeep.
Hi, Andrew. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
We have heard that you were COVID positive, and I think
Yes.
so. You are doing great right now.
I am doing great, and thank you for asking. Yes, I had some mild symptoms. I was testing positive. I started testing negative. My symptoms are pretty much gone, and I'm glad to be back on the hustings and back in the bus.
Good to hear about that.
Thank
sir.
you.
So, Andrew, my question is that you're here to announce today ending hallway medicine,
Yes.
right? And NDP has become the first party and has taken the initiative to introduce 3 full-fledged hospitals,
Yes.
especially in Brampton. Brampton needs that. A lot of people have died due to COVID and other issues, as you have already noticed that one. Doug Ford, the Conservative, has not done anything in the last 4 years. So my the first question is, NDP, you have taken that initiative. You have announced that you're going to introduce 3 full-fledged hospitals. What's your timeline like, NDP? In how many years you're going to complete 3 full-fledged hospitals?
Well, first of all, I want you to know that the resources necessary for our healthcare system are in our plan, and in the first 3 years, we will be spending almost $10 billion, $9.8 billion to deal with the staffing crisis in our hospitals and our healthcare system. The Peel Memorial has to be the top number one because it is a physical structure, and we can get that done as quickly as possible. But we're not going to renege the way Doug Ford has. We're not going to, make a commitment and then turn around and backtrack on it. So Peel Memorial needs to have a full 24/7 emergency ward as well as acute care beds. And we're also going to get the other hospital, the third hospital site, up and running. And as you know, there has been an identification of a need for a regional cancer center in Brampton, and we are going to get that happening. What I can guarantee you is you're not going to see in one budget the capital requirements for the moving forward on these hospitals one year, and then all of a sudden it disappears from the capital budget next year. What you will see is the capital money in the budgets every single year, and every year the capital money in the budgets will be expended, invested to move forward the actual changes that need to happen here, to move forward the renovations and the renewal of Peel Memorial into a full-service hospital, as well as the third hospital and the cancer center as well. This is the shell game that liberals and conservatives have played for a decade or more in Brampton. They talk a good game. They say they're going to put funding in the budget, capital funding for hospitals. It shows up maybe right before an election, and then as soon as the election's done, the next budget is tabled. Where's the money for the Brampton hospitals? Nowhere to be found. We're not going to play that game because the people of Brampton deserve so much better than that, and they have deserved better than that for a very long time. They deserve their fair share of hospitals and their fair share of access to healthcare. They have not had it. They have not had it. And as a fast-growing community, they should have had it a long time ago.
So you mean to say that you are going to keep the promise for a long way, right?
Yes, absolutely. We are absolutely going to keep this promise, and we are going to stay laser focused on making sure that it is achieved, which is not what's happened so far here in Brampton. That has not happened, but I guarantee you, we will absolutely make it happen. I can't unsee what I've seen in those visits that I've had. I've had visits here to this hospital a couple of times. I've had conversations with the administration who are trying to do their best to meet the needs of Brampton, but Brampton Civic on its own is not enough. So I can't unhear those conversations. I can't unsee the gurneys in hallways that I've seen in this very hospital. I can't forget the stories that I've heard from so many Bramptonians about the choices they have to make and the things that they have to experience in the emergency wards here, particularly in the hallways on the gurneys, or the tragedies that happen when they can't get to another emergency ward quickly enough because they've avoided this one, knowing that they wouldn't get the kind of attention in the time frame that they wanted to see. I can't forget any of those things. It would be completely an abdication of my responsibility, and it would be a slap in the face to the people of Brampton if I didn't follow through with the things I'm committing to, and so I will absolutely do exactly that.
I have another question, Andrew. You have talked about the house affordability also, right? Yeah. So what will you and your party will do to make Ontarians' life more affordable? As we know, the house prices are increasing here in the province, especially in the Brampton area. And due to that, a common person can't afford his own house. If you're being elected as a premier on 2nd June, what will be your take on this one?
So you've raised an issue that's top of mind for so many Ontarians. The cost of everyday life is continuing to increase, and some of the fundamentals that people need to be able to build a good life are becoming further and further away. I think about young people particularly who have totally given up their hopes, their dreams of ever owning their own home. I think about young people who are stuck in their parents' basement. It used to be we would talk about kids stuck in their parents' basement until they're 20, 25. Now they're stuck there till they're 30 or more, and that's not good for those kids, and that's not good for those parents. So we really do need to take seriously not only access to affordable housing, but access to affordable rent as well. And those things can be fixed. And so we do have a plan to get the speculation out of the market, to make sure that young people can have a little bit of financial assistance with help for their down payment, and make sure that people can have good jobs that pay the bills. But there are also other, as well as bringing rent control back to Ontario. We know that there are bad apple landlords out there. There are lots of landlords that are not this way, but there are bad apple landlords out there that are trying to rent-evict their tenants, that are trying to kick tenants out, saying they're going to repair the unit only to then get a new tenant in with virtually maybe a little paint on the wall, but nothing else, so that they can jack up the rent. So rental costs are going up as well, and we need to put a lid on that, and we're committed to doing that. but it's also what's coming out of the pocket. People are paying so much for everyday life, and that's why we have a plan. We are going to make sure that we reduce auto insurance rates and get rid of the postal code discrimination that's happening here in Brampton. We're going to bring the rates down by 40%. We're going to put a task force together to give us the solution that is going to get those rates down. We have the fewest accidents in the entire country in the province of Ontario, and yet we have the highest insurance rates in the country, and that's been the case for a long time. Liberals didn't fix it. Doug Ford won't fix it. We're going to fix it. So getting those insurance rates down, but also making sure that when it comes to your dental work, when you have to go to the dentist, you can do that with an Ontario dental plan. People need to be able to go to a dentist and not have to wait until their sore tooth becomes infected and end up across the street in the emergency ward to get a tooth pulled, when they could have been to a dentist to get that pain dealt with and get that tooth fixed. So a dental care plan is coming to Ontario with the NDP. That's gonna really relieve a lot of pressure on the pocketbook and give people the health care in their mouth that they deserve. But it also means making sure that your mental health care can be addressed, and your prescription drugs can be paid for both with your OHIP card and not a credit card. These things will also take pressure, thousands of dollars of pressure off of families and off of people. So our plan is quite robust, both on how do we save people money while fixing our healthcare system, how do we make sure that they can afford some of the big ticket things that they're paying for now, like auto insurance, like housing costs, and giving people hope for the future. I know that people think that some of these things can never be fixed. Well, they haven't been fixed. They've been made worse over the last number of years by the Liberal government when they were in office. That's why they only ended up with 7 seats, because people were so disappointed in their performance. But Doug Ford's made things worse, and conservative cuts always make things worse. What I'm saying to Ontario is, this time, let's come together and finally fix the things that matter most. Only Andrea Horwath and the NDP will make sure that every single day we go into Queen's Park and we work for you, not for our buddies, not for the big fish at the top of the food chain, but for you, so that everyday families can afford everyday life in our province. I want to remind folks once again, the election day is on June 2nd, but you can vote right away if you want to get rid of hallway medicine, stop the cuts to healthcare. A vote for the NDP will get us there. Thanks so much, everybody. Nice to see our candidates. Get back on the hustings, folks. Knock on those doors and take her home on June 2nd. Thanks, everybody.
ਸਭ ਤੋਂ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਪਿਆਰ ਭਰੀ ਸਤਿ ਸ੍ਰੀ ਅਕਾਲ, ਨਮਸਤੇ ਤੇ ਅਸਲਾਮ ਅਲੈਕਮ। ਮੇਰਾ ਨਾਮ ਗੁਰਰਤਨ ਸਿੰਘ ਹੈ। ਮੈਂ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ NDP ਉਮੀਦਵਾਰ ਬਰੈਂਪਟਨ ਈਸਟ ਤੋਂ, ਤੇ ਅੱਜ ਅਸੀਂ NDP ਵੱਲੋਂ ਅਨਾਉਂਸ ਕੀਤਾ ਹੋਇਆ ਕਿ ਸਾਡੀ ਸਰਕਾਰ ਅਸੀਂ ਬਰੈਂਪਟਨ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਸਾਡੇ ਹਾਲਵੇ ਮੈਡੀਸਿਨ ਕ੍ਰਾਈਸਿਸ ਅਸੀਂ ਖਤਮ ਅਸੀਂ ਬੰਦ ਕਰਾਂਗਾ, ਅਸੀਂ ਐਂਡ ਕਰਾਂਗਾ। ਇਹ ਸਾਡੇ ਅਨਾਉਂਸਮੈਂਟ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਪਿਛਲੇ 20 ਸਾਲ ਅਸੀਂ ਲਿਬਰਲ ਅਤੇ ਕੰਸਰਵੇਟਿਵ ਸਰਕਾਰਾਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਦੇਖ ਚੁੱਕੇ, ਅਤੇ ਦੋਨੇ ਸਰਕਾਰਾਂ ਸਾਡੇ ਹੈਲਥ ਕੇਅਰ ਸਿਸਟਮ ਨੂੰ ਅੰਡਰ ਫੰਡ ਕੀਤਾ ਹੋਇਆ, ਅਤੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਕਰਕੇ ਹਜ਼ਾਰਾਂ ਦੀ ਗਿਣਤੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਦੀ ਇਲਾਜ ਬਰੈਂਪਟਨ ਸਿਵਿਕ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਹਾਲਵੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਹੈ। ਇੱਦਾਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੋਣਾ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ। ਸਾਡੀ NDP ਦਾ ਪਲਾਨ ਇਹੀ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਅਸੀਂ ਬਰੈਂਪਟਨ ਸਿਵਿਕ ਨੂੰ ਫੁੱਲ ਫੰਡਿੰਗ ਦੇਣਾ, ਅਸੀਂ thousands of healthcare workers ਨੂੰ ਟ੍ਰੇਨ ਅਤੇ ਹਾਇਰ ਕਰਨਾ, ਅਤੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਨਾਲ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਅਸੀਂ ਬਰੈਂਪਟਨ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ 3 ਹਾਸਟਲਸ ਅਸੀਂ ਬਣਾਵਾਂਗੇ। ਇਹਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਅਸੀਂ ਸਾਡੇ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਹੈਲਥ ਕੇਅਰ ਕ੍ਰਾਈਸਿਸ, ਸਾਡਾ ਹਾਲਵੇ ਹੈਲਥ ਕੇਅਰ ਕ੍ਰਾਈਸਿਸ ਅਸੀਂ ਫਾਈਨਲੀ ਅਸੀਂ ਐਂਡ ਕਰਾਂਗਾ, and we'll make sure people get the health care that they deserve.
ਸਤਿ ਸ਼੍ਰੀ ਅਕਾਲ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ। ਮੇਰਾ ਨਾਮ ਨਵਜੀਤ ਕੌਰ, ਮੈਂ ਤੁਹਾਡੀ NDP candidate Brampton West ਤੋਂ। I'm a healthcare worker for 12 years, a mum of 3, and I'm so excited. Andrea was here today. We announcing ending hallway medicine. And the things that we talk about in Brampton is a healthcare crisis. Apnu sare nu pata si, we have one hospital for 700,000 people. And we all know our healthcare workers are working so hard trying to treat our patients, but we don't have the resources. And even when we're door knocking, we hear the same thing. NDP has a plan to make sure we have 3 hospitals with 3 emergency rooms, recruiting, returning, and retaining these nurses back into the healthcare system, making sure they are the pillars of our healthcare, and repealing Bill 124, a low-wage policy that Doug Ford had brought in. You know, we've had 15 years of the Liberal government, and they have done nothing. They have fired 1,600 nurses and created hallway medicine. So let's vote for change. Advanced polling is open on until May 28th. Let's vote for change. Let's vote NDP. Sat Sri Akal.
Good morning. My name is Andrea Barrett. I'm the NDP candidate running in Brampton South, and I'm very excited to be representing the NDP party and excited to be at this press conference today. Today we announced we will be ending hallway medicine. Everyone who lives in Brampton know we have one hospital, Brampton Civic. We are a population of almost 700,000 people. We only have one hospital. Time and time again, when I've taken my family members to the hospital, we have seen people waiting in the ER in pain for hours. It is not right. Brampton deserves better. Your family deserves better, and you deserve better. Our community deserves better. It is time we end the conservative cuts. We must end them now. Look at all we've gone through during the pandemic. We know that there is a crisis, and this is urgent, and we have to fix it now. We must elect an NDP government. We are the only government that will fix the healthcare system right here in Brampton. We know for years and years, there's been hallway medicine started by the Liberals who were in power for 15 years and cut and canceled, fired 1,600 nurses. And then we know there have been several conservative cuts that have not made things better. We must do better. Healthcare is so important for you and your family. The election is on June 2nd. Vote for a government that will fix healthcare. Vote for a government that will end hallway medicine. You don't want to be in the emergency room waiting in pain for hours. The time is now to vote for a government that will make change. So I urge you to vote for us, the NDP, on June 2nd.